Dr. Clara Doran. Welcome to the Power Within You podcast. It's wonderful to have you here today with me, and I was so excited to kind of speak to you about your experience, your journey, and I'd love to get into what you've been doing and how you've been inspired to create your company as well. So let's kind of kick off with you. Obviously, you're a doctor. You were a GP. So tell me about your journey from being a GP onwards to developing, going through your own journey and why you changed your career.
Thanks very much for having me, Mamta. It's great to be here and talking about these things. I think it's been a sort of gradual process for me. I worked as a GP for 15 years, 20 years as a doctor in total, and certainly since I had my own health sort of change about which is 9 years ago now, I really began to sort of look a bit more into mental health, how we feel, and ultimately that led me to brain health. So I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when my son was just turning a year old. So a lot going on at that time, but in the years that followed, I became sort of really interested in brains and growing brains and developing brains, obviously watching this little baby and toddler develop and grow, and also facing my own sort of health challenges at the same time. And that really, led me to learn loads more about brain health. I studied functional medicine, and that sort of took me down a different direction from being a GP, and eventually led us to start Noggin, which is around helping people understand brain health and how we can look after our brains.
So there was a slight pause there. Apologies. I think your journey is amazing. I think it sometimes takes, a event to happen or something to happen to enable you to make that change as well, doesn't it? Which, often we kind of fly through life thinking that we're happy or thinking that everything's okay, and then suddenly something happens, and we change and we go towards something which we think is more important and which serves our values and purpose. How did having MS as a chronic illness, did that change your mindset in what you wanted to achieve in your life, do you feel?
I think initially, I was just in the sort of fight or flight stage. So I think when I was sort of first diagnosed, there was a lot going on at the time. Obviously my son was so small, and I really just kind of, for me, it was about keeping keeping things looking the same on the outside, and kind of just, putting the diagnosis to one side, really. And it's actually, I guess, it is a chronic illness. It is degenerative, so it means it does, the natural path is for it to get worse, and there is no cure. So actually, really, it's as the time went on, and as the years went on, I sort of began to sort of realise, well, actually, this isn't something that I can leave to one side. It is part of my everyday, whether I want it to be or not. And I think that really kind of, made me look at health quite differently. For my patients that I was still seeing at the time, it really, just gave me a sort of different view on things when people were describing symptoms that, weren't as sort of black and white. I could feel like I could really sort of relate to those a lot more, possibly because I was experiencing some of those things myself. And that really kind of made me really want to get into the guts of, why I want, just accepting it for what it was one thing, but I really wanted to understand more about why and what I could do to try and make it better, or at least keep things on the level for myself and for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's and hopefully things are changing now. But when you go into a GP, you're not really asked about your emotional health. You're asked about your physical symptoms, and they might ask you about work and that sort of stuff. But and like I said, I think things are changing now. But we have to really deal with our well-being in a very much holistic way, I think, and because the NHS is so overloaded and people are so stressed out and burnt out, it's just about getting people in, treating them, and getting them out again. Do you see that change happening Absolutely. At all? Do you think it's still a lot of work to be done?
I I think it's really hard. I think, I think for all that we're talking a lot more about mental health, which is great, and it's so important that we are, I think there's still so much missing, I think, from how that actually really benefits people who actually, need care in that area. So I think it's really difficult. I think in terms of general practice, one of the many issues is time. Like, you just don't have enough time. It's really hard to get into somebody's mental health symptoms in detail in the 10 minutes, and particularly if that's not the only thing that they've come for. That may be the most important thing, but often we don't like to talk about that first. We talk about I've seen that for years. We talk about our skin rash or our sore throat, or something else that's much more smaller, and then sometimes the sort of mental health concerns come out towards the end, and by then you're running short on time, and how do you give that person all the time they need to really talk about that? So I think it's a real difficulty, it's an area of challenge. I think there are changes, definitely, but again, we're also dealing with a workforce that's got their own mental health challenges and burnt out, and it's just a really, really sort of difficult thing to balance. But again, I think we're moving in the right direction, and I think it's just about keeping moving forward and helping people understand, encouraging people to care for themselves is the most important thing, and then we can offer more to others.
Definitely. I've been reading a book by Gabor Mate, The Myth of Normal, and he is amazing. Like, he's just his work is so wonderful, and he talks about ignoring. He asks you to do this self-inquiry exercise about your mental health and how you're feeling, and one of them is, what bodily signs are you ignoring? Because often we have something, a rash, like you said, or bloated stomach, and we go, oh, that's just because of that, or we just ignore it. But we don't ever go deep into why we think that's happening, or evaluate our emotional state as well, because I guess he associates guilt and people pleasing and anger, repressed anger, with all these symptoms, including chronic diseases, and it shows that from research and stuff as well. How do you think, what are from your studying and from your research, how does stress affect the brain and everything else? Like, how is it all connected, and what are the effects of it as well?
I think it's such a fascinating area. I think stress, again, from my years in practice, I've always been aware that stress underpins a lot of different symptoms that people present with. However, I guess from sort of my studying around brain health and functional medicine, you can see, you really see that actually, not only does it in terms of symptoms, there are, biological changes there that happen due to stress in our brains, shrink under periods, due to chronic stress. Again, that's kind of oversimplified, but we know that basically a stress brain is an unhappy brain, and the issues around inflammation are absolutely key to understanding why so many of us are struggling with sort of mental health symptoms, and that inflammation is that sort of chronic inflammation that we're talking a lot more about now. There are so many causative factors for that. I think obviously long COVID is something, unfortunately, people, we're talking about for good reason, and there are a lot of brain-related symptoms from that, and it does look as if, again, simplified, but definitely inflammation is at the core of some of those longer symptoms. The fatigue and the difficulty making decisions and sort of functioning at the same sort of capacity as before, and again, that sort of root inflammation is where we need to be directing some of our efforts in terms of our everyday habits, and I'm sure medications and things that's something that's obviously being looked at. But the good news is about that again, we can take steps to reduce that sort of chronic inflammation, and those core sort of lifestyle things of getting enough sleep and making sure that we're exercising, and really finding ways to manage that stress helps our brains.
Absolutely. Is there a way that people can start? I mean, often I think the other day I was talking about mental fitness, and I mentioned about micro stresses. It was like a review in the Harvard Business Review about, one email from your boss late at night can send you into a complete crazy foray of stress. but you're not realizing what stress is, so it has an impact on all your kind of areas of life.
Yes.
Is there like a way that, how do people recognize their stress? How can they, if they don't know what they're feeling or thinking, like, is there a way that you can recognize it and then start dealing with it?
I think, again, I think, the big symptoms, or the big, the heart racing, the sweating, the stomach churning, all those kind of things, those are the ones that most of us do recognise. But often by then, we've probably already had some smaller signs that we haven't paid enough attention to. But I think, how can we recognise it? I think it's knowing what it is for you. I think common things, again, are that sort of irritability, difficulty decision making, and that feeling just kind of like, sort of sense of, if somebody asks me one more thing, I just can't handle it. I think that sort of overwhelmed feeling are all signs that we're under pressure. Whether it's one thing or lots of little things, whatever the reason is, we're struggling at that point, and that's the time that we need to really try and take a bit of a break, or at least, remove ourselves from the situation, or find some way to take a positive pause, to try and help us move through it.
So Clara, tell me about stress and how people can recognize it, because often it's too late until we burn out, we get anxious, we suffer from depression, whatever it is. How can we recognize it and nip it in the bud a bit earlier, do you think?
I think it's absolutely. I think we're used to the big symptoms, and we know that that sort of sweaty palms, heart racing, feeling sick, those kind of things are definitely physical representations of stress. But I think we often associate those with kind of big events, so doing a presentation or a podcast, or doing things like that, where you're feeling a bit almost like good nerves or good stress, where in reality, I think in every day there are signs there when we're under pressure that we just sort of normalize and think are as that's just us, or that's just that person, and I think those are the things we need to be kind of more aware of. And some of those things that I think we can be on the lookout for is a kind of that sort of the irritability, that feeling of being completely overwhelmed, and difficulty decision making. Like, we know when we're stressed, our sort of executive brain functions are sort of the first to be kind of challenged. So that kind of feeling of, somebody asks me to do one more thing or make one more decision and I can't do it, it's definitely a sign that you're maybe feeling, your body is under pressure and you're experiencing stress, and it's trying to recognize some of those things. And I think recognizing it in other people as well. I think it's really hard for yourself, but again, if you've close friends or colleagues or a partner, often you can see it in them, even if they can't see it themselves. And again, it's trying to have that kind of conversation of highlighting things that you're recognizing.
It's definitely having that awareness as well. And are there any sort of really good, effective ways to kind of help you through the stress? Like, what are things that, because you said about positive stress, where we all have good stress, right? Where you're sort of motivated and like that sort of stuff, but you have bad stress. What kind of mitigates that bad stress?
I think, again, it's quite individual. I think it's all, stress is an accumulate, or bad stress is an accumulation, isn't it? I think, the short-term stress that is the positive stress that happens before something different is happening in your life, or a major event, comes and goes, and, that sort of stress is completely normal. But I think when it doesn't come and go, and I think when we carry stress from one thing onto the next, and then that goes on to the next, is where we're sort of accumulating all those kind of negative kind of feelings, and that's where the impact comes. That's when we get this sort of picture of chronic inflammation. This is where our brain health can be affected. We get into poor sleep cycles, and it kind of goes on. So I think, mitigating it is really, it is important. And again, recognizing is the first step, but I think also having sort of daily steps in place to help with the inevitable difficult times that come along are really good. So, sleep is key, trying to get a little bit of exercise, and again, looking at our diet and what we're eating. All those things can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking that holistic view of your mental health, I think, as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
obviously this drove you your interest in brain health, as you mentioned, drove you to create your company Noggin. And I love the name, by the way. It's great. It's definitely memorable now as well. Like,
Good.
failing
Good.
brain health, I think it's Noggin. um,
Brilliant.
and yeah, and it's a very entrepreneurial journey that you've had, and it's very inspiring as well. So tell me about, like, and also having to do this while you're, dealing with a chronic illness. So what's your big journey up to? Like, how did you form the company, get the idea, execute it? Like, what are the challenges and successes for you?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been a journey, and a journey that I feel like we're very much still just very much at the beginning of. It really came from, as I said, I sort of studied functional medicine, and that really, I've always been interested in nutrition, but I hadn't really thought about it. Although, as a medical doctor, obviously you should, but again, it doesn't form part of the traditional training, really. And when I studied functional medicine, I learned a lot more about nutrition and really about the power of supplements and supplementation. And again, as a sort of traditionally trained medic in the UK, I had really, would sort of poo-poo kind of the idea of supplements generally. I think for people, I would say you don't really need them, kind of went along that ethos of, if you're eating a balanced diet, you don't really need anything else. And I think when I really looked into that, I just sort of really had an about turn and thought, actually, we all think we're eating a balanced diet. We all think we're eating a lot of the right things most of the time. But actually, even with the best of intention, it's really hard to get all we need from our diets alone all the time. And particularly when there are different illnesses, or you're on different medications for different things that affect our gut health and can affect other things. It's just challenging. So that sort of really led me to look more at supplements, and to look more about, brain health in particular. Energy's always been a really key area of interest for me, because fatigue is a massive issue for people with chronic illness, particularly MS, and certainly something I can relate to. And so I went into sort of understanding what I could do naturally to supplement my energy, and then started working with a nutritionist to look at sort of some formulations for products, because what I could see from the shops and what I was looking at for myself, not only was it hugely confusing in terms of, there's so many products out there, but I just really wanted to take one thing. I just wanted one thing that I thought was going to really just be a backup for the days that I knew I wasn't really getting all I could from, or I just knew that I wasn't, I was going to eat a bit more rubbish than I probably should. I wanted to know that I was kind of getting enough from this supplement. So again, that really took me down into a whole rabbit hole of supplementation and how supplements are made and what goes into a supplement. And that's, there's a lot I could say there. But again, ultimately I wanted to make something that was, had active ingredients that was going to help with the symptoms that people were really suffering from. And when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about myself, but also the patients I'd seen over so many years, that kind of general feeling of malaise and not really being anything specifically causing it, but just something that was going to help. So that took me into formulating the products that we've got at the moment. And here we are. Yeah.
What kind of products are they? So, like, what makes it different? Like, because you said that, you meant to, like, you could go to the sort of general stores to kind of look for supplements. Like, what did you do? I can't speak. What do you do differently compared to other stores that makes it more specific to brain health?
Well, we've got 3 products at the moment, and the first one, which as I said, energy was sort of the main focus, but also with ingredients that would care for your brain in the longer term. So B vitamins came up in all the research that I did as being really essential for energy, so that was kind of that was the beginning of it, really. So it contains B vitamins, but we've also got other vitamins, vitamin C and vitamin D in there, as well as minerals and botanicals that have been shown to help with sort of cognition, thinking, and what was it called, sort of brain caring ingredients. But I think it's also critical to talk about other things that are in the supplement, and the fact is that we've got nothing else in our supplements other than the ingredients that we've put that we know are going to help. Whereas so many supplements in the marketplace, which I had no idea about, contain lots of things called fillers and inactive ingredients and blocking agents.
Interesting.
So what you're buying, if you do decide to buy a supplement, you're often buying things that actually are not really doing you much good. And again, that I think is also where a lot of people fall into a cycle of buying something they think is going to help, take it for a bit, doesn't help, and they think, oh, supplements are rubbish, I don't need that. And that's actually it's a complicated area. So we've got oomph around energy. Then we've got another product called Pause, which is to help with stress. So we have ingredients in there that sort of more botanical ingredients like ashwagandha and rhodiola. So they're the adaptogens to help our bodies adapt in times of stress and help us relax, basically. So we've got that, and then we've got Fogo, which is the third product, which is all targeted around perimenopause and menopause. And the
definitely getting that. That's it. Go order.
It's cool. Yes. Brain fog and all that great stuff that goes on. But again, it's, as I said, I want it to be something that, one tablet or one capsule or one product that was going to cover a variety of things. You're not taking lots of different things, and ingredients that are effective, at good doses that are going to make a difference, and without all the kind of fillers and not so good stuff that you see in loads of products in the marketplace.
Wow, that's amazing. I had a question actually about, because you mentioned that thing called ashwagandha, is it?
Ashwagandha, yep.
Ashwagandha, yeah, I heard that before. When I was looking at that, I suffer from autoimmune disorder, which is psoriasis, so I've got it in control. But I heard that sometimes there's certain herbs and foods that are nightshade plants that can trigger up or not help you with that, or makes it worse. I don't know if that was one of them, or am I just making it up? Maybe, I don't know if it was that particular herb or something else that I was thinking about.
I'm not aware of that for ashwagandha, but
maybe there's something different that I looked at possibly as well. Yeah, because I'm really worried about the nightshade sort of.
Yes,
I think. Yeah, when it comes to
but I think
as well.
But again, I think that is the thing. I think our products are very much around kind of brain-related symptoms, and again, it's just knowing what's right for you. So absolutely, it's
absolutely. Well, I'm definitely I'm definitely in perimenopausal stage, and then heading very fast towards menopausal stage. And I do really want to be able to get to a point where when I do go through that process, to be the fittest I can, and in every way, basically, as well. And it's interesting about supplements because. So my standard was probably multivitamins and also omega-3, which I think is seems some sort of difference about omega-3, but vegan version. But then I started to take green powder, and I started with a very basic green powder. So like nothing else in it except for just broken down greens and some pineapple and that sort of stuff as well. But I did realise that it really does change my energy. Normally, because I only have one coffee a day, I get to 3 o'clock and I want a nap. I just want to get on the sofa and under my blanket. But when I started taking the green powder, I was like, I'm not sleepy. What is this about? It was amazing. I was blown away by it, and I was like, I know there's so many different green powders out there, but it's like it felt like it targeted my energy more than anything else.
Absolutely, and I think that that's such an interesting observation, because again, I think we get stuck in sort of autopilot as well in our routines as well. Like you say, you have your coffee at a certain time, and we all eat mostly the same things. So when we're feeling like we need a bit more, or things are not quite going the right way, it can be hard to kind of unpick which particular aspect of our routine could be changed. But then when you make an intervention like that, like you say, and you see a difference, it's really, it can be life-changing, really. It's quite reassuring. Yeah. And also just gives you that real kind of, oh, good. I can feel better.
Out there. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
And you sort of think about, like, I think it's sort of trying stuff out. But like, I think also because I've been working at home after COVID so much more, when I was doing my 9 to 5, I didn't really notice stuff. I noticed that I have a dip at 3 o'clock, but I couldn't sleep anywhere. So I just had to carry on through it. So I had another coffee or a cup of tea or caffeine, right?
Can just go down under the desk. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Sleep in the loo on the
yes. It's not a good look. No.
But it's so interesting. Yeah, it really is.
I think that. I was going to say, I think that's such an important point. And again, for the wrong reasons, many of us have changed things over recent years following COVID. And again, I think that whole time of, when we weren't all doing the same things that we were used to doing, other things did rear their heads, didn't they? In terms of whether it was good or bad, how we felt and different aspects of our lifestyles became really apparent. And I think removing a lot of that busyness and the distraction, it was hard to ignore some of the other things that were going on. But and again, I think it's interesting. And I think you mentioned perimenopause. I think again that's a great thing. That's we're all talking about that a lot more now. It's not just, thinking about menopause being something that happens for a year or two around the age of 50. The fact that there's an open conversation around perimenopause and, these symptoms that can be really quite debilitating in even the years before the kind of traditional menopause age. I think it's great that we're talking about those things and looking at our lifestyles, looking at what we can do to try and mitigate some of the not so pleasant aspects that we may experience from going through menopause.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually talking to my mum about this literally a few days ago, I think the weekend. Mum's turning 80 next week, and we're talking about menopause. She's like, menopause is everywhere. It's all over the TV. Everyone's talking about it. I said, but Mum, isn't it a good thing, right? Because we didn't have any education. Like, you suffered. I said, how was your experience? And she was, shit. Like, her experience was rubbish. My dad said, why are you in a bad mood?
Once, probably. Yes.
Exactly.
Not saying anything about your parents, but yes.
There's just no understanding about anything around there.
Yeah.
And I was like, Mum, it's such a good thing that, even opening up the discussion about HRT and like whether it's good for you or not good for you, or everyone making their own decision about it. But at least we have the knowledge there to make
absolutely. For sure, because again, what we're really seeing now around menopause is obviously the brain health side of that as well is becoming more and more apparent. And 2 out of 3 every new cases of dementia are in women, and it's it's a big problem. Globally, dementia is a big issue, but for women particularly, we do know there is this sort of estrogen link and other things that we're not even fully sure of yet. That means that women are more likely to suffer. So, looking at all those aspects of lifestyle and trying to improve our health with those things in midlife is really, really important to how we feel, how we manage our stress, and improving our menopause experience, hopefully, but also looking at the risk for dementia as well. So again,
absolutely,
hopefully going in the right direction in some ways.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely in the mode of embracing getting older. I feel like I'm wiser. I hope so anyway. I hope I'm wiser. I'm more knowledgeable. I'm able to feel good about myself, but I think that part of your life is scary because you don't know what is going to change for you as well. So I love that there's help out there in terms of support and supplements that you can take to help you through it. I wanted to ask actually for you, have you seen the difference with yourself in terms of these supplements and how it benefits you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's, nothing's a panacea, nothing is unfortunately there's no magic wands, but definitely in terms, and again, I feel like that the way I see the benefit for me is that it, certainly I know from taking my daily oomph that it does give me energy for longer parts of the day. Napping is something that is quite a frequent thing for me, and strictly, in the last couple of years. And, that doesn't mean that I don't have to ever nap, but it does mean that I can, get more done in the day. And it's not I just have energy over a longer period. And I don't have to rely on caffeine quite as much because, again, I know that it does disrupt my sleep later on in the evening.
Exactly.
So I feel like the benefit with taking my oomph is that it really just gives that kind of sustained energy throughout the day without the highs and lows. And again, you feel like you're doing something positive as well. It doesn't feel like you're sort of doing it to fix something, or it feels like it's a proactive step, which I think, again, when it comes to health, is really important. You want to feel like you're making changes and you're in charge of how you feel to some degree, even when you are facing conditions that you'd rather not have. If you can do something that's going to make a bit of a difference, then that really
so
helps.
empowering, isn't it, to feel that and try to sort of take control of that aspect of your life.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Make yourself feel better. It's a wonderful thing that you've done. I can't wait to try your products as well, so I'm definitely going to do that.
Absolutely.
Great. But the other exciting thing is that you are writing a memoir, tell me more about that. That sounds super interesting.
Thanks. Writing is something I've always been interested in doing, but I don't know, I think obviously being a doctor was just too all-encompassing for me to have to do that as well. But again, it's something that I kind of always hoped I might have an opportunity to do. And it was actually before the pandemic, I kind of got into my head that actually I felt there was aspects of my story that I wanted to tell as part of a memoir. So I was working on that, and I have been just sort of ploughing away, and I signed with a literary agent at the end of 2021, which is really exciting.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And that was a real, definitely real sort of pinch me moment in terms of, being in my early 40s and thinking, gosh, this is the chance of something sort of new happening for me. Was really exciting. So working with her, and we've got the sort of memoir is out on submission to publishers and things at the moment. So it's exciting, really exciting.
Fingers crossed. I think I'd love to read your story as well. It's fascinating and also incredibly inspiring as well. Just thinking, and it shows that if you start from one career, you can do something different, and you can do it despite adversity as well. If you're able to do it and follow your core values and your belief about what you're doing, which I think is a really beautiful thing. Best of luck with the memoir as well. Let me know when it's out.
I will. Well, fingers crossed. Yes, thank you.
Fingers crossed for sure.
Yes, and I think that is, when something, your health changes, I think it does just reframes things, and it does
exactly.
It makes you realise that whole sort of dreaded thing of, we only have a certain amount of time, and what is it that you really want to do with it, and that whole thing of if not now, when. So.
Absolutely. It's just making the most of your life, going for what you believe in, and taking some risks as well. Because if you don't, then you won't know, what you can achieve. I think out there as well.
Totally, having a go.
Having a go. Exactly. If anyone wants to get in touch with you in terms of your story or your in terms of Noggin, how can they contact you?
So our website is nogginbrain.co.uk. So all the information's on there about the products and a bit more about my story. In terms of getting in touch, then again, the email's on the website, or on all the social channels, either Dr. Clara or at Noggin People. So plenty of ways of finding out. We've even made it onto TikTok quite recently, so that's talk about learning things. Yes, so that's a bit of a to the system, but anyway, we're I know.
Don't know.
my son loves it. It makes me laugh. Like, of all the different things, that we talk about, things we're doing. Like, again, he's only 9, so he doesn't do anything on social media. But obviously, he's heard of TikTok. So the fact that we can talk about TikTok with him, he definitely thinks is something. It's
very cool.
Makes us cool. Yeah. But not really. But anyway, we can pretend. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. And my last question for you is, how do you find the power within you to manage your mental health, your well-being for now and also for the future?
I think it's such a good question. I think listening to yourself is really key. And I think that's what it's, for me, that's kind of what it's all about. It's not an easy thing to do. There's so many distractions going on around, but it's really just taking time, making sure you've got some time every day where you're just got that sort of silence to really check in with yourself and, ask yourself the questions, how am I actually feeling? what have I done today that I'm pleased about and I'm grateful for? You know, what do I need for myself to kind of make that different or even better tomorrow? And that's kind of the way for me to manage these sort of the situation.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love that, and it's taking it simply and listening to yourself, and that's the hardest thing to do. You know, it's like
it's not easy. No,
easy, right? Yeah, that listening to yourself is takes time, and it's pretty purposeful as well, and you take the space for it as well. I think, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think this is like wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with me
thank
today.
You.
Like,
thank you for having me.
Inspired me. I'm going to try something new. I'm going to get on the website and awesome products. And
great.
It's been just really lovely to have a chat. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.